told me to throw in some East Coast slang just so that it felt familiar. So if there's anything in here that makes absolutely no sense in the way that I'm saying it, you can call me out on it. Um, and as mentioned, your microphones are unmuted, so please feel free to stop me at any time. There's nothing worse than being at your end and listening to somebody just blab for 45 minutes, while you're probably answering emails or text messages or whatever else. So I'd really like to make this as engaging as possible and have you walk away with this with something that you can actually use. So if there's a part of it that you really want to hone in on and it's something that's of interest, stop me. If you're bored with it, I'll try to get through it as quickly as I can and on to the next section. So within 45 minutes, I'll roll through a few sections tonight on the business of coaching. And like I said, hopefully you walk away with something that you can actually use. It sucks from my end not seeing you either because I have no clue how engaged you are. So I'm just assuming that you're all sitting on the edge of your seats with the riveting content that I'm going through here. Okay. Next page. See if I can get there we go, the quick keys page down. So real quick, who am I? Grew up in the Northwest Territories, as Tash mentioned. Photo of me on the top right, so you can see who the heck is the talking head at the other end of the screen. I started my own wakeboard and water ski school in Yellowknife, which is probably the most ironic thing that you would think of being that far north. And ended up running it for 10 years. It was an idea that a buddy and I had over a couple adult beverages, deciding that office jobs were for the birds, and if we could make a go of this, it would be the best summer job ever. And it turned out great. So I did that for 10 years. Like Natasha mentioned, moved to BC, started with Canada Snowboard. I coached snowboarding up to the Canada Winter Games level, and actually met Natasha for the first time in Halifax at the Canada Games there. Also coached high level, or I guess more elite level, Pee Wee hockey in and around Vancouver. So a few different sports under my belt, a few different types of coaching. And then now I'm stuck flying a desk in Vancouver. So this kind of stuff still brings me back to, what is a passion of mine in coaching. These are a couple shots. Top right is one my mom's real proud of, which was in the Globe and Mail when I finished my MBA right at the end of November. Bottom right, it was in Halifax at the Canada Games, Pee Wee hockey team, and then that was the wakeboard camp on the left there. So tonight's agenda to fill your boots with, we'll roll through budgeting fairly quickly, how to build a value proposition for your customers, how to build your own brand, and ideally this is something that you can do within your club or your system. How to market that brand, and then an element that I deal with at Canada Snowboard in sponsorship. All right, budgeting. Usually a word that would make you run, scream, or just completely ignore what I was going to say next. But it doesn't have to suck. It's something that is important. It's really the crux of the business, because if you are not good at it, you will end up running yourself out of business very quickly. So tools, without giving you, an expertise course in budgeting, just fire up your Excel if you have it, Microsoft Excel. And in the templates, bring up a budgeting template. There's a pile of them there. You can adopt it for, what you want to do with your club, with your program. But at a very high level, if you've never experienced the exciting world of budgeting before, first thing to do, list all of your line items. So put everything in there that you're going to spend money on this year. That can include everything from your travel, your trips, your food, your staff time. Make sure you put contingency in there, because shit always happens. And then you'll come up with what is your total expenses for this year. And then usually an easier one to do is what is going to be your revenues. And if you have to do a multiplier that says we're going to have 100 kids times $100, put those in different boxes. So as you get registrations, you can update the number of kids, and the number on the right side, which would be how much you charge them, doesn't need to change. And then right there, you'll figure out quite quickly what is your revenue for the year. And if you take one and minus the other, that's how much you need to make up. And where we'll get to later in the presentation is if you've got a shortfall in your budget, how can you use things like sponsorship to try to fill some of those gaps? The other things that you can start to look at, and this is kind of a buzzword of value in kind, but within your budget, what can you find that's in there that you don't actually need cash to cover? For instance, if you do a lot of travel with your team, could you get points donated to you and your team to cover travel expenses? If you've got grooming requirements at your local hill where you're running ski or snowboard programs, could you get the hill or somebody else to donate the time to do that? Also make sure that you build in all of your salaries. If you've got administration costs, build that in. Any legal costs that you need to do, such as insurance, sometimes gets overlooked. And then what I like to do within that budget is down another column, use whatever legend you want to use, but indicate what's nice to have versus what's need to have. And that's going to tell you quite quickly if you've got a gap between your expenses and your revenues, what can you cut out of your budget that you don't necessarily need, but potentially if you can get it covered through some sponsorship, it would be nice to have. And then the last part is just track everything throughout the season. And the best way that I have found to do that are use tools. I don't know if anybody's used this one while you're traveling with your team, but this is probably the best one that I've found for keeping track of expenses. If you're on your phone right now, which half of you probably are, you can go in the App Store and look up something like Splitly or Split Payments. And what you can do within these apps is you can say, okay, these 10 kids are on the trip, and you just put all of their names in. And then every time anybody spends money on anything, you can indicate who paid for it and who was in on it. So if you buy dinner and there's 10 of you, you can say, okay, everybody was in on this and split it 10 ways. You can even split it up proportionally if somebody had a steak and somebody had a salad, how much each of them gets. And then tomorrow night, if Natasha buys dinner, which she never does, you can indicate that as well. And then at the end, it spits you out as simply as possible who owes who money. So it'll say, okay, Natasha owes Brendan $100, Natasha owes Bill $20, Bill owes Frank $5, and then you're done. It's a great tool that I've found has been really helpful. That was the crash course in budgeting, and I know that I really didn't get into much detail. I think that Tash said she was going through that with you guys on another presentation, so hopefully you've got a little bit of expertise in budgeting. The second element that I had is, what is your value proposition? Like, what is it about your program or your coaching program or your sport that you're offering that really holds value for your customers? Because if you can't define this, I don't imagine your kids, your customers, your clients are going to stick around very long. Whenever you go to business school, they like to use Venn diagrams like the one that we've got here. So I ripped that out of the slide. And what it's meant to show you is there's three elements within a value proposition. What is it that you're offering? What is it that your customers actually need? And what are the other marketplace offerings that are out there? And where those three things come together, that shows, what is different about your product? What is it that you're offering that overlaps with what they need? And that's the value that you bring to your customers. So if somebody is looking for a program to get them from here to the Olympics, and your program is all based on come out and meet some friends and have a good time, those two circles aren't going to overlap, and you're never going to provide the value to that customer that you need to either get them through the door or keep them there. So the way that we talk about creating value is there's 4 ways, and they all have something to do with price and quality. So you can either maintain your quality, so whatever you're offering right now, and be honest with yourself of what is it that your program offers to your participants. If you reduce the price just a little bit, now you've increased the value to all of your customers, but that's going to have budget implications for you. You could also reduce your quality of your program just a little bit and reduce the price a lot for your customers. You could increase the quality but maintain the price, or you could raise your quality a lot, but just raise your price a little bit. What all of these are supposed to show is that from wherever you are today, there is a way for you to increase the value that you're providing to your customers, even just through pricing and quality of what you're offering. Some of these at the bottom here are kind of interesting ways to think about what is it that you actually sell to your customers. A question that was asked to us one time that was an interesting one is number one, are you selling a DeWalt drill or are you selling a 6-inch hole in a board? And when you kind of flip what you're actually buying or what your customers are looking for, you could market the hell out of a DeWalt drill all day long, but I don't really care if it's yellow and it's got 16 speeds and it, can do 50 different things and open my beer in 7 seconds if all that I need is a 6-inch hole. So give that some thought and see if you can reframe it in your own mind while you're sitting there. What is it that your customers, your clients, your kids, whoever you're coaching actually needs? What is it that they actually want? And how can you market your program differently to just address, what is it that your customers really want? I'll never do it justice, but what I would suggest is number 2. It's called Start with Why. I think that this guy is the most viewed TED Talk on the planet. Leah mentioned that the sound keeps cutting out. Is anybody else, can everybody else hear me okay? Even just type into the chat.
Brendan, I know I can hear you pretty well.
Shannon's all right. David's all right. At least these people are still awake. That's good news.
Yeah. Leah, it may be your internet connection. Try shutting as much down on your computer as you can. It's my only recommendation. But yeah, Brendan, you're pretty clear, I think.
Okay. But this really is a good TED Talk, and it's only, God, I think it's like 10 minutes long. It's really short. So if you haven't seen it, if you get to a section where I'm really boring, you can Google it and watch it now. I don't think Natasha will dock you Pro D points for that, but if you are engaged, fire it up when we're done this presentation. And it's a good reframing of whatever it is that you're selling. How do you market that in a way that showcases why somebody should buy the product, not what is it that you're actually selling? And the example that he uses is Apple computers. So if you're watching that one, you're on the right one. Duplicate slide. So the third section that I wanted to talk a little bit about is brand strategy. So you as coaches, as club administrators, you have a brand, even if you don't necessarily have a logo right now. What you're providing is a brand. People want to come to your program because you're providing a certain experience. So as a bit of an exercise, if you've got a pen and paper in front of you, or hopefully most of you a keyboard, you can try this while we're going through it and see if it helps. But I want you to be able to create a brand positioning statement. Because really what it should be is, why do you exist? Why does your program exist? Why should somebody care about what it is that you're doing or what you're selling? So here's an example, and I hope that you can see it all right on your screen. So what is it that you want your customers, your fans, your clients, or your kids to perceive? What do you want them to think and feel about your brand, compared to everything else that's out there? And your competition doesn't necessarily have to be another program in the same space. Your competition is anything that your kids could be doing rather than joining your program. And again, I'm assuming that you're working with kids. If you're working with adults, you can use that interchangeably. So for when I was running a wakeboard camp, my competition was, there was no other wakeboard camps for me to compete with in the Northwest Territories. But kids could have been at soccer camp. They could have been at bike camp. They could have stayed home and done nothing. They could have gone golfing. They could have gone on vacation. These are all of my competitions. And when you can kind of focus on what is it that's unique about what I'm offering relative to everything else that's out there, you start to have something that's really special. So if you could write it down, whatever you're doing, to blank, target group. So that's whoever you're trying to sell to. XXX, so whatever your brand is the brand of what's the frame of reference that provides what value proposition. So we went back to the value proposition earlier. And what are the 4 reasons why? Why does your brand offer these things? Why is it different? And I'm going to provide you some examples. Coors Light. And I know for those of you on the East Coast, this is probably like, well, their competition is just straight up water. But this one was provided to me, so I'm going to give it to you anyways. But throw Alexander Keith's or Moosehead or whatever else people are drinking while they're listening to this in the slide, and it should still work. So to young-minded beer drinkers, Coors Light is the brand of beer that delivers the coldest, most refreshing beer on the planet. Okay, and then what do they market? You know, why is Coors Light this cold, refreshing beer on the planet? Well, because it comes from glacier water, which is probably total bullshit. It embodies youth, free spirit, and fun. It's the most refreshing option at the store, and it's the beer of summer. And at least that's what they're marketing. And if you look at any of their advertising campaign, that's exactly what they're showcasing. The funny thing is, they're not marketing the taste of their beer or the fact that their beer has more or less alcohol than water or anything else. It's almost ridiculous, but their advertising, their whole marketing thing is just about being cold. Well, if I put their beer in the fridge next to my beer, they're the same temperature, but they've built an entire brand about just how cool and refreshing their beer is, and people obviously buy it, at least in central Canada. One that might be a little bit more relevant to coaching was one that I just put together for my wakeboard camp called Flipside Water Sports. So for kids that are aged 12 to 16, that was the group that we were targeting. Flipside Water Sports is the brand of action sports. So we weren't necessarily competing against sports that were fairly traditional. That's the coolest summer camp out there. And that only a select few ever get to be a part of. We could only have 8 kids in the boat. So we had 8 kids a week. And we had a lineup of people that wanted to get in, but we had to make it exclusive. And because we knew it was exclusive, we leveraged that. We made sure that if you came to camp, you walked away with a t-shirt and a towel and sunglasses and a whole sticker pack that you could only get if you came to camp. We had more fun than anybody else. So we wanted to make sure that everything that we did with our marketing lived up to the experience that if you were at this camp, you were there to have fun. We knew that not everybody knows how to wakeboard and water ski, but anybody can learn it. So who we were marketing to was actually not the really athletic kids that were the superstars in gym class. We were looking for the kids that their parents wanted to get them out of the house, that they weren't really good at anything else, that when they tried to play team sports, they were the last ones picked. Those were the kids that signed up for like weeks at a time for our camp because they could be good at something. And it gave them a chance to show off. And because we knew that, we made sure they had every opportunity to. So we would invite the parents out to watch their kids show off. We would invite friends of the kids on Fridays to come out in the boat so they could show off. We would send them home with photos and videos so that they could post it on their own social media. But everything that we did in terms of the experience that we offered our kids came back to this positioning statement. And that's why we were different than every other camp that was out there. Sorry, the brand character here. This is still for Coors Light. We were definitely not drinking beer with 12 and 16-year-old kids. That is frowned upon. Brand strategy. So we talk about 4 pillars of a brand strategy. So think about this with your organization or your club for a second. How do you make people feel when they're part of your program? What do you want them to feel when they're there? Are they having fun? Are they learning? Are they just there because it's a camp of excellence and they're getting better? And does that actually resonate? Is what you're trying to provide them happening for your kids of, who you're coaching? The second one is relevance. Who are you relevant to and at what level? You have to offer some level of authenticity and actual relevance. If you're, a soccer camp that's trying to be an excellence camp, but you just really don't have any good coaches, you're probably not relevant in that space, and you need to rethink, where should we be focusing our energy if all that we have is coaches that are really good at, having fun with our kids. The third one is differentiation. And this one's probably, in my opinion, the most important of what is it that sets your brand apart from anybody else. And the last part is familiarity. So if you're going to build a brand of your club, of your program, of you as an individual coach, make sure that you build it consistently. The same messaging over and over and over again, and do it in a place where your audience can see it. So whoever it is that you're marketing to, make sure you're getting in front of them, in the right places. I would advocate, even if you're just a personal coach, come up with a brand image. This could be something that's kind of a fun exercise that you can build with your kids. You're trying to build something that becomes recognizable. And not all of us are graphic design artists. So a few websites here that I've found helpful. The first one is called 99 Designs. And what you do is, you can fire up this website while I'm talking. And you kind of type in, okay, I'm a surfing company. And it'll say, okay, great. How much do you want to spend? And you can say, I want to spend $15 on a logo. And then it'll say, which of these 100 logos do you kind of like? Which ones resonate with you? And you start picking and choosing. And as you go through it, it starts to build an idea of the type of logo style that you want to use. You can put in what type of image you want, what name you want. And then what it does is kind of sends it out to graphic design artists. And they all come back with logo ideas. And you usually, I think, pick 3. And then you can work with a couple artists to refine them. And then eventually you have to choose one. And then you might get 5 revisions to go back and forth until you really like it. And then it's paid for and it's yours. And it's a quick and easy way to build a really professional looking logo and brand. And then from there, make sure that we went back to relevancy. Make sure people can find you. 2 of the website builders that I found really helpful is Squarespace and Wix. You can build a really professional looking website that you can have registration and payment built right into. They look great on your mobile phone. So check those out if you're looking to either upgrade or create something from scratch. So Sean just typed in there that Wix is great. Sean, do you want to chime in and let the group kind of know what you've done on your own website there? Or not. That's okay too. If you can find the unmute button, happy to hear your stories of website design and fame and glory. I'll carry on, but if you want to chime in, happy to have you. All right, so now you've got a basic budget. You figured out, okay, we're going to make this many millions of dollars with our coaching program this year. You've decided this is the value that we're going to provide to our clients. You've come up with a way of positioning that's going to showcase, how you're different from everybody else. You've built a great logo and a website, and now you need to figure out how to get people to go to it so that they'll join your program or your club. In marketing, we talk about 3 stages of sales. And in your case, sales would be getting somebody to pay to join your program for a year. And if it's a free program or a community program, it's just getting them in there and staying there for the whole season. So the first one is awareness. Figure out exactly who are the people that you're trying to sell to. Where do they live? Where do they consume their media? How can you get your message in front of them? The second one that we've got is trial. And this is the easiest one that you have as coaches that you can provide for free. It's hard for somebody to try an iPhone, a $1,500 phone. They can't just send you one for free and say, try this out for a week and then decide if you want to keep it. But they do have stores built in a way that you actually go in and you play with the phone and you look at the phone and you see all the features, and they have people there explaining it to you. And what they're trying to do is give you the trial in person, rather than having them all in boxes on the wall saying these look nice, you should buy one and see if you like it. They let you try it and know that you like it before you walk out of the store and buy one. So as coaches, you can do the same thing. We used to run free days all the time. And even if you just give somebody 10 minutes or 15 minutes with your program and they walk away loving it, it's the best marketing or advertising tool you'll ever find. So I would encourage you to try to find ways, the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, the end of the year. Bring a friend programs can be great, where you let your current participants bring somebody out for free and try it. Make sure you've got information there so that you can provide it to their parents or them directly of how they can sign up or stay involved. And then the third stage of selling is adoption. How does what your customers experience jive with what is it that you're selling? So if you say, come out to this program and you will make it to the Olympics in 4 years, and after 3 years, your participants, are still competing at the club level, what you're selling and what they're experiencing is not going to be relatable. So just make sure that you're authentic with what is it that you're selling and can you actually deliver on that. The last piece of kind of marketing that I had this one beaten into my head in business school is it's all about strategic thinking. Does anybody want to take a shot without firing up Google and going to dictionary.com on Googling what is strategy? Somebody try to give me, you can type it in or you can talk it out of. In terms of marketing strategy, how would you define what that is for your brand? All right, Amy's taking a shot at it. I can see she's typing. All right, so Amy's got, what is the plan according to the brand? And I think if I can summarize that, it's going to be, how do we market based on the brand that we want to establish, which is great. Michael, how you not only obtain but maintain clients? Sure. Natasha, a planned approach towards getting more participants, etc. Okay. Miranda Bates, how we will get the word out there. Okay, perfect. All of them, I think, are on the right track of where I'm going. And the best definition that I've had or heard, Peggy, defining strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Sure. That I would even call that a tactic of figuring out, where your brand sits today and what you can do to improve it. So the best definition of the word strategy that I've had thrown at me so far is very simple. It's where to compete and how to compete. If you go back to what I mentioned earlier of competition, it's who is your competition or what is your competition? Your competition is PlayStation. It's EA Sports. It's kids sitting on their phone and doing nothing. And the people that really are good at strategy are the ones that figure out, what is the space that I want to compete in, and then how am I going to compete? So if you're running a snowboard program in Nova Scotia, you might look at it and go, you know what, there's all kinds of skiing programs at Martok, but there's really nothing going on at Wentworth. So, this is kind of a blue ocean, as we call it. This is, an uncrowded space. That's where I want to compete. And then how am I going to compete? I'm going to leverage the fact that a snowboarding program is different than any other sport, that there's no coach yelling at you, hopefully, that there's, you're on the field to play the whole time. There's no bench to sit on like I did in Pee Wee hockey when you just weren't good enough to get the ice time. You're there the whole time. And that's how I'm going to compete with all the other things that there are to do out there. That's my marketing strategy. So again, just to go back to strategy, all that I do is try to provide this as something to think about in terms of how are you actually going to get more clients. It's deciding where to compete and how to compete. And if where you're trying to compete is crowded and really hard to get clients and expensive to market to them, it might not be the right strategy. Try this as one other option for your brand positioning statement that you can take into effect or account the strategy section. So you would say for blank who want, and what is it the need that you serve? Our product is, what is your solution to their problem? That's basically what marketing is problem solving. With key features, what is it that's the key feature about your program? And how is it measured? How do your customers decide on the quality of the program or the value that you're giving them? So if I was to walk through that one as an example, I might say, let's figure a hockey one. So this is a hockey example when I was coaching Pee Wee hockey for kids that wanted to go to the NHL. So for my defined market, I would say for elite level hockey players with no restriction on finances, because most of the kids that I was coaching at this country club, and believe me, I was not a member, really had no restriction on finances. Their parents would pay whatever it meant to if they had to travel the world and go to every competition that there was. And who want access to the best training opportunities and a chance to go to the NHL. Our product is the fastest pathway from Pee Wee hockey to midget AAA, because we had key features of former NHLers and the top coaches in the Lower Mainland. And sorry, skipped one. Our product, what's the solution? We're going to create a customized training program for your kid to get from Pee Wee hockey to the next level, with key features, the best coaches, the best former athletes, all that stuff. And as measured by the number of kids that we've put through this program that have gone from Pee Wee hockey into midget AAA. So that would be, a way that you would come up with your brand position. And once you have that, everything that you do, from the delivering the experience to how you market your program, should come back to that. And we will win. This is, how you're different from your competition. We would say, unlike our competitors who might be, community-based programs, our product provides better coaching and better staff, and that's supported by higher entrance fees and protected by, this is why our competition can't overcome it, years of experience, we would call it. So if anybody wants to take a crack at coming up with one for your own brand, feel free to either type it in, chat it out, or even if you're just writing it down for yourself or talking to yourself in your own head of, what is the brand position that my program has created, and how can I use that to gain more participants and keep the ones that I do have. And these things don't necessarily have to just come from one person or one coach. You can ask your kids, your participants, what is it about my program that you really like? Or what is it about other programs that you really hated? Or why do your friends really like that other club that they're joining? And these are good ways to try to figure out what is it that are your strengths and your weaknesses, as Peggy mentioned, and how can you leverage the strengths, and how can you take the weaknesses and turn them into strengths for your business. All right, so we're getting close to my 45-minute time limit, and hopefully I've still got a few of you with me. This is the last section that I'll talk through before a little bit of Q&A at the end here. So sponsorship. Sponsorship is an area that I work in at Canada Snowboard, and it's one that's evolved a ton over the years. Sponsorship seemed like what it used to be is you would call up a brand like Coca-Cola and you would say, I've got a program and we need $5,000 and we'll stick your logo up at our event and we'll wear your logo on our jersey. And they would say, yep, that sounds great. Here's $5,000 and you're on your way. And where sponsorship, as pure sponsorship, seems to have gone to now is entirely metrics based. So somebody will say, that's great, I'll give you $5,000 to put that logo on your jersey, but how many impressions am I getting from putting that logo on your jersey? And if you're honest with yourself, you'd probably say, well, there was 7 people at our last game and 3 of them were on their phone, the other 2 were reading the newspaper and 1 was chasing the dog. So, well, let's call it 2 people saw that logo and they saw it 15 times. So that'd be 30 impressions a game times 10 games, 300 impressions. And Coca-Cola will go, well, for $10 I can get the same thing on Instagram. So thanks, but no thanks. So what you need to define for yourself, if you're going to go out and try to attract sponsors or partners or businesses to help you in your program, is can you actually offer a sponsorship program? Or is what you're looking for what you call philanthropy, which is really just looking for donations and handouts? And sometimes it can be a little bit of both. But you need to be, fairly realistic of what is it that you're going to deliver back in return for whatever somebody gives you. And if we go back to the budgeting thing at the beginning, you've figured out all of the line items that are your expenses, and that should be the start of your sponsorship strategy. So if you have a line item for travel, how do we go find a sponsor that can help us with travel? And if you can provide them value because you're going to drive business back to their business, that's great. You can realistically give them a sponsorship program. But if all that you're asking for is, you know what, we just need 10,000 Aeroplan points so we can get to the next contest, really what that is philanthropy. And there's a lot of people out there that are willing to contribute that. You just need to make sure that you're not out there asking them for sponsorship and they're expecting that now they're going to sell $1 million worth of whatever it is that they're selling because they gave you these points and they're sticking their logo on your jerseys. Here's kind of the sponsorship sales process as it would go. So you've found somebody, let's say you've gone through your budget and you said, you know what, we really need somebody to help us cover food expenses while we're on our next trip. So that you go to the local store, somebody that works at, geez, Tash, what's a good grocery store on the East Coast?
Sobeys, local.
Okay, so somebody at Sobeys, and they seem like they might be interested. The next thing that you have to give them is some type of proposal. And what I would suggest is keep it really simple. 1 page or less, bullet points. This is what we need from you. We need 15 hot dogs and 3,000 hamburgers and a whole bunch of tofu. And this is what we can give you back in return. If that comes to fruition and they say, yep, here you go, here's all the food you need, well, now you need to service that sponsor. So you need to make sure that you're giving them back everything that you promised, because it's a million times easier to keep a sponsor that you're keeping happy than to get a sponsor and then not deliver on your end of the bargain and then have to go try to find another one or go back to them again. Activation is something that you can offer. It's kind of a buzzword in sponsorship, but what it means is it's giving a sponsor the opportunity to bring their own brand to life through whatever you're doing. So if you're running a tournament, activation would be you go to Sobeys and say, hey, you know what? If you sponsor our tournament, you can bring a tent and set it up and hand out free samples to everybody that walks by. And for them, that's a value. So that's true sponsorship or partnership there. And then the last piece of that is evaluation. So at the end of the year, you should be prepared to hand something back to your sponsor that says, thanks, you gave us $5,000 worth of donuts. and we, in turn did all of these things for you. We'd like you to come back next year. And that's the evaluation part of, annually, I would say, making sure that you're keeping your sponsors happy, and sit down with them and say what worked and what didn't work and what can we do better next year to try to make sure that you're getting something out of this, not just handing us free food all the time. What I've attached here is kind of an example of what we would call a sponsorship sales deck. And you can use, a fairly standard program on a computer. You can use Microsoft Word. If you've got a little bit of design skills, you can use something like Keynote or PowerPoint. So just going through, there's 5 pages that I have here. The first page, top right, is just a title page, something kind of flashy to show you what you're doing. This is for a fundraising event that we're doing this year with Canada Snowboard. The second page explains what is the event, what is your program, what is your team, who's on it, what are you guys trying to do this year. The third page on the right is why do we need your support? What are we looking for and how can you help? The next page, bottom left, is here's 5 different ways for you to join us. Here's 5 different ways that you can support us. It could be cash donation, it could be time, it could be value in kind. Let's say you need a law firm to draw up your waivers for you. Well, maybe you go find somebody that will be willing to do it for free. And then the last page that we've got here is, what can we offer back for you? What are opportunities that we can give you back, that we hold in our possession, to try to provide some value back to you. Targeted sponsorship is my slide here, which is kind of, it's a funny comic in the top right. But go after somebody that you think, if you're a mountain climber, this guy went out and found a ladder sponsorship. So what is it that your program is doing that there's a business in your area, and it might be something that you hear on the radio, it might be something that you see in the newspaper, of a way that a brand is trying to market themselves. So for instance, a brand like Mazda, it's a car sponsor that we have at Canada Snowboard. Well, before we ever had them as a sponsor, they were putting commercials out there with people loading up snowboards on the top of their car and driving to the mountain, and people getting out and having a good time snowboarding. So we know that part of their strategy is reaching snowboarders. So we called them up and said, hey, we got a whole pile of them and they're pretty good. They're going to the Olympics next week, and we'd like you to be their official car brand. And it was a pretty easy conversation. So the more you can find, a sponsor that aligns with what is it that they're selling and what is it that you can offer, I think the easier it would be to bring them in. The other pieces of advice of this is I would really go after local sponsorships. Unless you are a national program, sponsorship is so sophisticated now that I would really look for kind of grassroots local businesses to be the ones to support your programs and your clubs. I'm going to skip through this one, and Natasha's going to send you out this presentation, so everybody will have it when we're done as well. Here's a couple creative contribution or sponsorship ideas. Rather than just asking them for money, ask them to host a fundraiser for you. So rather than going to Sobeys and saying, hey, we need $5,000, say, we need $5,000, and what we were thinking was maybe we could host a fundraiser at your grocery store to help us raise that money. Or even better, maybe they can do one for you, where $2 from every Atlantic salmon that's brought in gets contributed back to your program. Donation of points, I know that I mentioned that a couple times, but that can be great for offsetting travel costs. And usually businesses will end up having thousands of points on their own cards that they just never use or know what to do with. Create a custom sales item with percentage of proceeds going to your club. I mentioned that one, where you can have $2 of every item goes back to the club. Provide experiences. So if your club is going on a really cool trip somewhere to a really neat location or event, offer that as a sponsorship opportunity, that you can bring, 5 people, 5 of your staff can join our team to go to Lake Placid for a snowboarding contest and stay with the team and see the events and kind of be part of the program for a weekend. Talked about this one earlier. Look for opportunities to let partners activate or bring their brand to life through what you're doing. Set key performance indicators. I know we talked about this in coaching of, what are your KPIs with your kids or your program. But look to build those with your partners, and then look for ways to over deliver on them. So they said, okay, we want you to hand out, I don't even know, 100 flyers to people that are coming to your events. Agree on that, and then ask them for 150, and over deliver so that every year they feel like they're getting more value than what they're paying for. Content creation. This is one that's huge these days, and I would argue that all of you on the phone probably have a whole pile of experts at your disposal in terms of creating content. Social media, videos, photos. Every kid with a phone now is basically an expert, videographer and photographer. And being able to put that together for a sponsor or a partner to give them some content to put on their own channels, especially when they're not very good at it, can be a huge value. You could look for charitable contribution, especially if you're an organization that can provide tax receipts. If you're not, there might be a parent body like your provincial association that has charitable status, so that people can donate money but then get a tax return or tax receipt for it on their returns. And then the last thing is donate assets that your club can sell. Last year we had somebody in Ontario that decided, after years of holding Leaf season tickets, don't ask me why, they just decided they were bored of going to Leafs games, but they wanted to keep their season tickets so that if they ever made the playoffs, they would have first access to them. And they just gave away 25 home games and let us sell them. And we put them on Kijiji or eBay, and somebody bought them for a crazy price because they do that in Toronto. And it was a great fundraiser. So that's another thing you could go to businesses asking for is, do you have anything that you could contribute that we can put in the silent auction, or we can put up for sale, or we could use as a fundraiser? And that's kind of my presentation. I apologize for going a few minutes over there. If I'm summarizing this up, first thing, figure out what is it exactly that are going to be your line items that you're going to spend money on this year, and how much money are you bringing in realistically for revenue, and then look for ways to offset your expenses through partnership, donation, and philanthropy. Value proposition, make sure that you've come up with a way to define what is it that your program offers that nobody else can or does. Build yourself a brand to really showcase, now that you know what your program is or does that nobody else can offer. How do you make sure that you build a brand around that so that people recognize it and it resonates, and it kind of just breathes and lives through everything that you do. Marketing, figure out who to take that money from and how to keep it coming in. So figure out, who is it, the next group of people that you're trying to bring into your program, and how do you keep them there? How do you keep providing them the value that's going to make them want to sign up year after year? And then the last piece is sponsorship. So decide A, if you're ready for sponsorship, or B, if philanthropy is kind of more your strategy. Build in a program to try to cover as much of your budget as you can, and fish where the fishing's good is the analogy that I'll give you to close on. And look for sponsors in areas where they're really aligned with what you're doing. So that was almost 50 minutes of me talking. You can probably hear it in my voice that I almost lost it, but I hope that you picked up a couple things there that you might have found helpful. And fire away. If people have any specific questions on advice that I might be able to provide for you, your program, yourself, your club, you can type it in, or feel free to let the microphones fire up.
Yeah, I wanted to start and say thank you, Brendan. That was really helpful. I enjoyed it. So you guys, like Brendan said, you can either type some questions in there or your mics are enabled. So go ahead and ask questions if you'd like. We got a couple typing, Brendan. And yeah, I really enjoyed that. I made some notes. It was good. It made me kind of made the brain work a few times. That's what I like. Need some background music to play on our webinar so people type questions.
The Jeopardy theme song. There's something going on here.
Exactly. I'll have to get that. Well, there you go. Brendan, can you read the comments there?
I can, yeah. Thanks, David. Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about feeling like you got a long way to go. I've never talked to a single organization, even those that are rich in sponsorship and deep in budgets, that don't feel the same way. So I think the key is just finding a good place to start from and slowly building and making sure that your the experience that you're providing for your customers and your kids kind of matches what is it that you're advertising and trying to sell.
I'm
I
gonna
feel like
let the last. Oh,
everybody
sorry,
else
go.
is just typing stuff and then deleting it and typing it and deleting it so that the little line says that people are typing and they're just trying to get us through the hour. So I'll stop talking.
I'm gonna let everyone keep typing. But as you guys type your questions, I just want to say that thank you to Brendan for joining us. I appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed him joining us from someone outside the Atlantic, someone we haven't heard from before. So I will send you guys all an email after this, not tonight, but tomorrow, with a little bit of a summary, and let me know how you guys like this. If you'd like Brendan to come back again, talk about another topic. And there's another comment from Miranda. There, Brendan.
Okay, let me start with Miranda's. Any advice on writing grant proposals? Good questions. That's one that is certainly lucrative if you're good at it. Um, and that was actually how we started the wakeboard camp years ago, was getting a grant to get a boat. And it wasn't a lot of money, but the biggest advice that I can give is that people typically miss the mark when writing grant proposals because they write them from what their club wants, not from what the grant distributor, what their mandate is. So, as an example of that, if you're applying for a grant that's supposed to go to high performance sport, um, people will write the grant proposal because they need to go on a club trip, not so that you can bring in an expert coach that's going to take your kids from, a 7 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10 in performance. So in terms of the actual writing of them, I would really think about it from the other side, is if you were the person evaluating the proposals that came in, would you give yourself the money because does it meet all of the criteria that are listed? And if you have competitors that are also writing grant proposals, how does yours stand out, especially in a way that it's so aligned with the way that the grant is supposed to be distributed that there's no way that anybody else really would look more favorably than your organization with the actual grant. Um, I think the hardest piece with grant proposal writing is finding them. And sometimes they go unused because people, don't know where to find them, don't know where to look. So I would probably say talk to your provincial association if you're, at a level below that, and lean on them a little bit to try to find, grant ops. They don't have to write them for you, but at least they can point you in the right directions of some potential grants that might be, you might be eligible for. Peggy, Obviously, having the right plan presentation is to ask for funds is important. Thanks for the summary. Sean, my voice is currently shot down code, so I'll stick to type. Thank you for the insight. It's greatly appreciated. Okay.
Miranda, I'll also let you know, and for everyone on this call, if you're involved with your provincial association and you're looking for provincial grants and how to write those, we have started doing individual consultations with our PSOs here to try and increase success and get a better finger on the pulse of what our group's looking for and how can we line them up with what we're doing, and just make that kind of grant proposal side of things with the provincial funding easier. So definitely go talk to your PSO like Brennan suggested, and then if it's a coaching project, I'll sit down with that group one-on-one and discuss it before they go ahead and put all the work into writing anything. So we can kind of say this is what we're looking for and this is how it's going to have to be written. And then if it's an excellence project, same thing, we have someone that'll sit down with you. And if it's an organizational project, we have someone that'll sit down with you. So in the last few months, it's been a very recent change. There's a little more support here in Nova Scotia to do exactly that. And we can help guide you into the other provinces if you're from one of the other Atlantic provinces. But I think, Miranda, you're local here. Yeah. All right, well, we're a little bit after 10 o'clock, so I'm going to, in respecting your guys' time, and it is late here, I'll let us go for tonight. I did record this evening, so we'll be posting it on our website. So that you guys know, the new Canadian Sports Centre Atlantic website launches on February 1st, so we're really excited. It's going to be great. We're going to have all the recordings of all the past webinars that are going to be populated on there within the next couple weeks, so you'll be able to access the old ones. The other great news, our next in-person session is February 20th, and we are going to be live streaming it. So I'm picking up the equipment tomorrow. We have brand new camera and everything we need to live stream our future events. So for those of you joining us from PEI New Brunswick, Newfoundland, February 20th will be live streamed. And those happen at 7 o'clock at night, so there'll be the classroom full of people, and then I'll live stream whoever's interested in using Adobe Connect, the same thing you're on tonight. So look forward to some information about that coming out. I know some of you guys are waiting for when we get it together. So February 20th. So again, thank you guys. Thank you, Brendan. I really, really enjoyed tonight. I hope you guys did too, and we'll either see you on February 20th, the rest of you guys, or hopefully a lot of you guys are local coaches, and I'll see you before then.
My pleasure. Thanks, Tash.
Yeah, I'm glad you came out online.